Yeah. No, I remember that.
The same.
I looked at that and I'll be like, why would the Eagles be upset about that? And they were like, oh, it's because doesn't want Doug Peterson doesn't want his guy learning under a different guy. And I was like, that's stupid. This guy works with Tom Brady. Like if I
Yeah,
could,
Matt Ryan.
yeah, exactly.
Or any quarterback in general.
Right. All right. So welcome to the Two Birds and a Third Weekend Podcast. I'm joined here by Ricky and Eagle Speed. This episode is brought to you by Desert Eagle. Thanks for the shout out, bro. You don't know Desert Eagle? He's an Eagles video maker who he has just a shit ton of views. I mean, anybody can back me up there.
No. Not fine.
All right. So, first are we gonna start out with the Eagles? We're gonna talk about the Eagles, and first we're gonna talk about the Eagles off season. So,
Well,
what about the Eagles off season impresses you? Doesn't impress you? Makes you question
I'll be
your
right back.
sanity?
I mean, overall, I like what the Eagles did in the offseason. I thought going receiver free agency was smart, and it was smart. It turned out because the three top receivers in the draft all went before our pick.
Yeah.
So
That
at the end,
pissed me off.
at the end that worked out as far as that goes, and I think Alshon was their best move.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought they could have given him a 2 or 3 year deal. That would have been me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the 1 year deals concern me the most. That's the one thing I didn't like.
They concern you, but at the same time, you can always franchise tag him. You know.
Yeah, you can franchise tag him, and even if somehow all those players go, we'll get compensatory picks.
Right. Yeah.
In the future, if they go.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd say at the very beginning of the offseason, receiver was a big thing that I thought we needed, and cornerback was a thing that I thought that we needed. And I knew that we weren't going to sign any free agent, like any big free agent cornerbacks. I know we got Robinson from the Indianapolis Colts, but I was like, I would more likely want to sign a wide receiver free agent.
Right.
I wanted Corey Davis in the first round, especially after Sidney Jones got injured, but it worked out in our favor because we still drafted him. But I really wanted the Eagles. Originally, I wanted the Eagles to go Sidney Jones in the first, and then Chidobe Awuzie in the second. But he went to Dallas. Dallas, you're getting a really good cornerback.
Yeet, indeed.
And I didn't want Mike Williams because nobody named Mike Williams ever does well in the National Football League. I think there's been like 2 of them. So I think he's talented. I just don't think he's gonna do much. You know? I think that he's cluttered on a San Diego Chargers team where he's not even like going to be the number 1 receiver, you know?
Right.
It depends on how Keenan Allen turns out. Like, if he keeps getting hurt,
that's true.
Then maybe.
You're right. And then
I mean, that might work in his favor because as a first round pick, usually you have to be like the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
When in this case, though, Mike Williams, he could kind of just be that number 2, and I guess in the future slowly ease into being a number 1.
That's true.
I could help him.
And I didn't want John Ross. And I knew that the top 3 positions were going to be wide receiver, running back, and cornerback. I didn't think that in a million years we were going to pick a defensive end. Like, were you surprised when they went defensive end in the first?
I kind of wasn't. I was almost. I mean, I thought if a receiver was there, they were going to take one, even if it was Ross, and we didn't want Ross. I think they would take him if he was there.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, if you look at the history of our drafts, it doesn't really surprise me because 3 of our defensive linemen projected to start are now first-round picks that we drafted.
Yeah. Not to mention, not to mention, we usually draft. We've been very much known to draft linemen in the first round.
Yeah, that's been ever since the Andy Reid era, and especially with Howie Roseman now.
Yeah.
I think what surprises me is how many from where I live in South Jersey, so I see a lot of Eagles fans. A lot of them weren't really pleased with this draft because a lot of them wanted a running back, a la Dalvin Cook, and some big name draftees. But the thing is what the Eagles did was they played with the cards they were dealt, and they actually did it pretty well. I mean, a lot of people don't really recognize that. It's when you have to go with how the draft is in terms of, you got to keep in mind this was a defensive-heavy draft, and you know what? They did well. They picked Derek Barnett. That was a solid pickup, and for the most part, I see him being Marcus Smith's replacement for the most part, which we'll get into later. Sidney Jones is an interesting one because if he can be fully recovered, he'll be a very good corner. And there's a lot of other picks that you guys made that were actually pretty well. Pretty much there wasn't really a single player. It wasn't like you guys picked a player that's okay, I don't understand why you picked him. He doesn't fit your system, because for the most part they all do.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, though, Brandon Graham is 29, 30-ish. Vinny Curry, to me, was disappointing. Chris Long is old, and Marcus Smith is about to be out. So, and with Connor Barwin going, and he was non-existent last year. It's basically like rushing 3.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Barwin on the field, he was non-existent. And, I mean, it made sense to add a young defensive end, especially to a guy like Barnett who was there. It made sense.
Mm.
I mean, to the people that didn't like the Barnett pick, I mean, who else would we have? I mean, we weren't going to pick Malik Hooker. I mean, we don't need a safety. Jay Howard, that's probably one of the least of our needs.
Mm-hmm. And
no offensive linemen were taken, no receiver were taken, and we weren't taking a quarterback.
Right.
So the only position I could see you argue, if not for defensive lineman for there, would be maybe Jonathan Allen if we can't sign Timmy Jernigan after this year, or Reuben Foster.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only 2 guys that seemed like you would take over Barnett there, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, I saw them possibly taking a cornerback. I remember seeing everybody be like, well, we're definitely going to take a running back, or we're going to take Cook, or we're going to take McCaffrey. And I definitely worried about that because I worry about taking running backs early just as much as I worry about taking tight ends really early.
Right.
Just because running backs have such a short shelf life. And I do think that both McCaffrey and Cook are talented players. It's just I feel like Cook would have been a better running back to take early. And I'm actually very surprised that I'm guessing his off the field issues made him slip in that draft. But I think McCaffrey was just taken so early that I was just glad when the Panthers took him because I didn't want any part of him. But
yeah, he's definitely a system running back.
Yeah, I definitely like I've come to like the pick. It's just the reason why I had a lot of trepidation with the pick was because the Eagles have been known to draft defensive ends and they don't pan out. What was it? Mamula was the defensive end, right? Mike Mamula.
Yeah, and Marcus
he
Smith
was a defensive end. Marcus Smith was a defensive end, and we'll get to him. Jerome McDougal was a defensive end. He didn't pan out either. The only good thing that he ever did was he provided Eli Manning with the "Welcome to the NFL" hit. Otherwise, Brandon Graham is a good defensive end, but it really took him a long time to develop into that player who was that 13th overall pick. You know, and if you remember in that draft, everyone thought the Eagles were going to get Earl Thomas, who everyone thought was going to be the heir to Brian Dawkins, but that didn't end up happening, you know?
Yeah, and I think, well, you guys got to remember, you guys could have had Joe Mixon.
Yeah,
no, I'm playing. No, but
we could have.
No, but like, yeah, you guys could have. But the thing is when I saw, Mr. EDP go all insane because they didn't get Joe Mixon, it's like, realistically, Joe Mixon is a talented player, but the problem is that do you want your rookie quarterback exposed to that publicity and like, oh, you have this teammate on your team that has this history. Do you want to deal with that? You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been good for Wentz. Mm-hmm. It just would have been another thing he would have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so, people that want to be like, oh, I can't believe we passed up on Joe Mixon or something like that. Trust me, it's very good in Wentz's case because you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. And I think that in every way, I'm glad. Like, I think that the Eagles had a good draft. It's just that they're like most drafts. I think that every player that they drafted has a good chance of being like a decent part of the team in the future. But at the same time, there's a lot of what ifs. Can Rasul Douglas develop into a good cornerback, or at least a decent cornerback? Or are we throwing him to the Wolves gonna make him a good player, or is it gonna destroy his confidence? At the same time, Donnell Pumphrey, a lot of people are saying that he's gonna be the next Darren Sproles, but he's very different than Darren Sproles in a lot of ways. Very different. I actually see Corey Clement being more having more potential at the running back position than Donnell Pumphrey, and Corey Clement wasn't even drafted. Yeah,
that was the one pick I didn't like in our draft was Donnell Pumphrey because I thought Jamal Williams would have fit our running style perfectly.
Yeah, and the Eagles went in front of Dallas to pick him. I don't even think he would have been even on Dallas's radar.
No, he wasn't.
No. They had already drafted Switzer, right? Switzer had already come off the board at that point in time. So that was their scat back, return man, receiver, slot receiver,
slot receiver,
small slot receiver guy. So when I saw that, there was absolutely no reason in my mind that the Eagles were ever going to need to draft that guy. So
or to trade up at least, give up picks.
Trade up we lost 1 4th round. We had 3 4th round picks. It was dumb. I felt like the Eagles had a relatively good draft, but I felt like they left a lot of players on the board.
Yeah, so before we move on, I just want to bring this up. I know a lot of fans like to be like, oh, we should trade for this player, this player. The problem is that when you're I think the Eagles are in rebuild mode for the most part, if you look, how they are.
Yeah.
But the thing is when you're in a rebuild mode, you need as many draft picks as possible. And even if you have all those draft picks, you still have to, of course, you still have to do stuff with those draft picks.
Yeah, you could be like,
but for the most part,
Cleveland and have 12 draft picks and not do anything with them.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what the Cowboys did, they pretty much rehauled their secondary without relatively moving at all in the early draft, and that was pretty well for them. And that's kind of scary if you know, if you're a fan of an NFC East team, because it's like if you have other teams drafting good and you're just like, you know, luckily with how with Howie Roseman managed to get you guys a first round pick, I think that was genius. I mean,
that was highway robbery.
It really was. I mean, but yeah.
And a 4th round pick for this draft too. This next one.
Because Sam Bradford is not a first round. Is not worth a.
Not even like a 2nd or 3rd.
No, he's worth a. I'd say he's worth a 2nd because teams will fish for quarterbacks because they don't grow on trees, and if someone offers you a decent one, I mean Sam Bradford started 15 games this season. You know, that's pretty damn good for Sam Bradford.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2015, he started 14 games. Even that's good for Sam Bradford.
Yeah.
Even and he had no offensive line.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, Sam Bradford isn't a good quarterback, but he's not a bad quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's not going to win you football games, but he's also not going to lose you a football game.
Yeah. So I want to move on to the whole Marcus Smith situation. I just recently started hearing about it. So what's the big ordeal? He wants more money? Like, what's going on?
Right. He just doesn't care and he wants to get cut. He wants to start. And he won't start here.
Because he knows that he's not better. He's probably not better than Steven Means. He's probably not better than Derek Barnett. Chris Long is gonna start. Not gonna start, but he's gonna be on the active roster.
Rotation.
And we've got more defensive tackles as well. Destiny Vio, not Jarrell Jernigan. Timmy Jim Jernigan. And what's his name? Qualls? Is that his Quails?
Qualls, yeah.
Okay. He was drafted by us in the 6th or 7th round, so he's gonna be on the team as well.
Yeah, and when Bo Allen is healthy,
when Bo Allen is healthy, he will play too. So there's less and less of a chance that Marcus Smith is making the team. Which I'm gonna say right now, I feel bad for Marcus Smith, and I don't feel bad for Marcus Smith. The reason why I feel bad for Marcus Smith is Marcus Smith was brought into a very, very, very cancerous climate on the team. Because this was 2014. This was the time in which Howie Roseman and Chip Kelly were both feuding with each other, or starting their feud with each other. And at the time, the Eagles had the 20th pick in the draft.
It was the 21st.
The 21st, regardless. They traded back with the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why they did that was because Chip wanted to draft not Jeremy Maclin. He wanted to draft Jordan Matthews with that 21st pick in the draft. He wanted him. But Howie Roseman, being a general manager for as long as he was, and even in the front office, I'm willing to bet that Howie Roseman has been inside his fair share of war rooms. He knew how the draft board would fall, and I'm guessing he liked Marcus Smith. Now, Marcus Smith didn't fit our system at all. At Louisville, especially when he was playing very well, he played 43 defensive end. He didn't play 34 edge rusher, that's not his position of choice. So what Howie said was, we can draft someone else and we can trade back into the beginning of the 2nd round, and Jordan Matthews is still going to be there. So that's exactly what happened. The issue was that Marcus Smith was a reach, in the fact that he was a low 2nd round, high 3rd round pick. I mean, he was a great player in college, but he wasn't high on other people's draft boards. And in an unfortunate sense, we picked for a semi need, which you can never have too many defensive ends. And that's how that situation worked out. He gets to the team and he doesn't run the same position, or he doesn't fit the system. So Chip decides to make him an inside linebacker. I mean, the guy was undersized, but I think he's like 6'4". That is way too tall to play inside linebacker. You know, he's too tall and too stocky.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was my interpretation of what happened. I don't feel bad for him, because you should be in camp, because you have nothing to lose, because you get money if you play in preseason games. And if you don't make the active roster, someone could still pick you up if you have a good preseason. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not doing himself any favors.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his stats, like 23 total tackles and 4 sacks as of the end of the 2016 season, and you've been in the league for now.
And most of those were the last game of the 2015 season and last season.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, it's not like they were even like meaningful stats.
They're deflated stats because he wasn't playing.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't fit the system. So it was a bad pick and a bad use of talent. Because when you're looking at talent that you have on your football team, you should have players that fit your system. But if you don't have players that fit your system, you should use them in a way that they will be successful. You should gear your offense and defense in a way that will fit the players that you have on your team.
Yeah, I mean, that's how, like, you'll have players, like, for example, in Dallas, like, you have a player like Cole Beasley and Terrence Williams, for example, on offense. It's like they're not Pro Bowl or caliber players, but they're good role players, and they fit their job good.
Or you'll have a player like DeMarcus Ware, who is an amazing 3-4 edge rusher, did great in Denver, amazing things in Dallas as well. But if you remember his last season in Dallas, they had switched to a 4-3 defense in a system that did not fit what he did at all. Because DeMarcus Ware isn't the kind of guy who's going to put his hands in the ground and bull rush. He's the kind of guy who's going to stand up in the 9 position. Or around the 9 position. And he's a great edge rusher. He's a great tackler. He's great at those things. Don't try to make him into something that he's not.
Yeah, I completely get you. But yeah, and he was getting older too, but that's besides the point.
Ew.
You know.
What do you have to say about that, Eagle Speed? I know that I just regurgitated a mouthful.
Like, I agree. And as far as, like, talents go, like I've been trying to tell people with Jordan Matthews, at least, like, you can't really get mad at his downward production because he's not a number 1 receiver.
No, he wasn't. We all knew that. I mean, I'd say his best season was his rookie season, because he didn't drop passes, you know. His second season, he had more yards and he had just as many touchdowns. He probably had more targets and more catches as well. But his first season, you know, you have Jeremy Maclin, who's an established wide receiver, and then you have Riley Cooper, who was an established wide receiver the season before that. So you have a situation where, I mean, slot cornerbacks aren't really going to cover you as much. And you're going to, I mean, I think he had 2 games that season where he scored 2 touchdowns in both, like, 4 touchdowns total, 2 touchdowns in both games. I think that was the Texans game and the Redskins game where he had
In the Panthers game, I think, too.
he had 2. Oh yeah, he had 2 touchdowns in the Panthers game too. So he definitely racked up his touchdowns in that way, but once he became the starter on the team, which in 2015 he was the starter on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Nelson Aguilar, who's fairly new. You have Riley Cooper, who's on the mass decline. We also had Miles Austin, who has been declining since he broke up with Kim Kardashian, and that's where you're stuck with, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's just unfortunate for him too, and also the fact because I like Jordan Matthews, and I think he definitely makes a lot of he's made a lot of spectacular catches in his career, as has Nelson Aguilar. But it's just there's not a lot of consistency there. He'll drop the easiest pass right into his gut.
Do you think we see some of rookie year Jordan Matthews with more talent in a contract year?
I hope. You never know. You never know with these contract year things. I mean, I thought we'd see a lot from Vinny Curry, but we just didn't see a lot from him, whether it was because he was injured or whether it was because he was the starting guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You just never know. Oh, I forgot to talk about Vinny Curry. Vinny Curry's also on the team, so that's another guy who's in front of Marcus Smith. I almost forgot about Vinny Curry. But the thing about Vinny Curry is he's not doing a service to himself. You never do a service to yourself by holding out, because if you hold out, you're not going to win. You will never you'll never win. I mean, you remember, if everyone remembers, what was it, the 2015 season when Cam Chancellor held out with the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when he held out, I was like, he'll be back. Because it doesn't make any sense for him not to be back, because he's losing money by not participating in team activities, going to team meetings, and playing in games. That's how you're going to get money in this league. And you're not doing yourself a favor, because if you don't show up to these team activities, then you going to another team might hurt the amount of money that you are going to receive, because you're going to be seen as an off-the-field issue. I knew he would be back, and he came back, just like I said. So it doesn't make any sense to hold out. You don't do yourself a favor. And everyone remembers the fake news report about Brandon Graham holding out. That was funny. Yeah. People were losing their shit when Fletcher Cox wasn't showing up to OTAs. I was like, don't worry about it. The only other
he did it last offseason too. And no said anything last offseason.
I mean, not everyone can have the mandatory OTA attendance of the Dallas Cowboys. Who nobody they're not missing anybody, by the way, which is good for them. But I mean, the only person who's really missing is Jason Peters, but I don't expect Jason Peters to be around for much longer anyway, so
he can do whatever he wants.
What do you think about Jason Peters?
I think he's not elite, but I think he's good. He's just a good left tackle. He's not the Jason Peters of 2013 and 12 and 14 anymore. And he's just on one leg. I mean, he's a warrior. I mean, that's why he's still playing.
What do you mean 2012?
Yeah, 2012, 2000. Yeah, when
he had one leg. He was on one leg in 2012.
Yeah.
The funny story was he tore his Achilles in the offseason, and he got it repaired, and then he was in a wheelchair, and he fell out of the wheelchair and I think he re-injured his Achilles, so he had to go with Demetrius Bell, probably the worst offensive tackle we've ever had. But yeah, I think that next year needs to be the point in time where we find his replacement. I could see us drafting a tackle.
Yeah, offensive tackle in the first round next year is very likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna do that. Well, the year we drafted Wentz.
Yeah.
But obviously we didn't. I think I wanted the issue with them was that there were too many offensive tackles who got caught smoking weed every day. Smoke weed every day. But
they were smoking the devil's lettuce.
Right? That's evil. But I wanna I kind of want to move on from the topic of Marcus Smith. What else were we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Carson Wentz.
Oh, yes.
Like comparing him to Dak Prescott.
We can do that right now. Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott. Former second overall pick versus former 100th overall pick.
135th overall pick.
135th overall pick with the Dallas Cowboys. And Dak Prescott has just a very, 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 very good first season where he had 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And I think he had like 6 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, he had 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 6 rushing touchdowns.
Okay. See, I pulled those stats straight out of my ass. I didn't even know what they were. Anyway, has a very great season while being surrounded by the best offensive line in football. The Phillies just scored. B, probably I would say that Ezekiel Elliott is going to be the Adrian Peterson of the next 10 years. He's got Dez Bryant. He's got great role players, great coordinators.
A Hall of Fame tight end.
A Hall of Fame tight end in Jason Witten. And he basically, I would say that Dak Prescott was put on, was given a golden ticket, starting for the Dallas Cowboys. You know, I think that's like the situation that anybody wants to play in, and not to mention, he played better than any of the other guys who had played the year before. Matt Castle, crap. Brandon Whedon, crap. What's his name? The Rabbit. Kellen Moore, a piece of dog crap.
Jamil Showers.
Right?
Yeah, we get the point.
Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
Mark Sanchez, butt fumble. And
Brandon Whedon.
And then you have Carson Wentz, who is currently playing for a rebuilding franchise. Started out very well, and then I believe that he lost a lot of confidence in the team because his receivers weren't reliable, his line wasn't particularly reliable. He made some boneheaded plays himself. His coach made some Peterson made some very boneheaded calls. The defense wasn't as good as they were at the beginning of the season. Things fell apart. Is what I would say about it. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was disappointing. It was disappointing, you know.
I mean, I think, me personally, not to make excuses, but I do also think that the Week 4 bye was the worst thing that could happen to us at the time.
And Lane Johnson getting suspended as well.
Because Week 3, we made the Steelers look like the Cleveland Browns.
We really did. They scored 3 points. The Eagles held the Pittsburgh Steelers to 3 points. I also think that
Wentz was on fire. That was his first 300-yard game of the season.
Yeah.
He looked poised. He was protected by Lane Johnson. And the bye week, I just think. I mean, granted, we should have beaten Detroit. Like, we could have played better.
Yeah,
But the first half, we were sleeping because
I think
we
that
gave up. Because we gave up like 200 yards of offense in the first half, and we gave up like 50 in the second half.
That game was also the poorest officiated game I've ever seen.
I mean, yeah, there's that, but we also can't cover Theo Riddick at all.
Yeah, he was good. Especially when you put Kendricks on him, probably our worst cover linebacker. But my biggest issue, the reason why I think that all that happened was I think that this team was just too high on that Steelers win. You know, you have a point in time where you have a young team and they play a game, they win a big game that we were favored in that game, but the reason why we were favored was because we were at home. You know, if the game was in Pittsburgh, the Steelers would have been favored by
tremendously
by like six or 7 points. But the line was more even because it was in Philly. The Steelers were off their game. They couldn't kick an opening field goal. Our receivers were catching the ball. The line was blocking. Wentz wasn't getting any pressure in his face. Their defense was playing so soft, and our defense was just killing them. I mean, Jalen Mills going up against Antonio Brown and being able to hold his own was probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen. You know,
as a 7th-round rookie,
As a 7th-round rookie, but then we just tanked. You know,
I mean, part of the problem was too is that when Ron Brooks got injured, whenever we have to put Malcolm in the slot and Jalen Watkins behind him, it's way worse.
Yeah, well, Jalen Watkins, if you guys, he was from Stanford, right? He was a.
No, he was Florida.
Oh, Ed Reynolds was from Stanford, right?
Yes, Reynolds is from Stanford. Okay.
So when we had Watkins back there, Watkins was the guy. I remember him especially in that first New York Giants game when he was the safety help and he was nowhere to be found. It was like he was doing more harm than he was doing good. And he had two big helmet to helmet hits, and those costed us because you can't hit a runner with the crown of your helmet anymore. It was just a wreck. It was just a wreck, and especially that Green Bay Packers game too.
Yeah, the Giants killed us with like we would play cover 2 and like that hole between the corner and the safety on the streaks. The Giants got us in the second game with those, but
yeah, they did.
Hopefully.
The two costly interceptions. You know, 2 costly interceptions in the first 2 drives. And that's never gonna set your defense up. And not being able to score touchdowns and your coach being a bonehead and calling plays on 4th down instead of kicking the field goal, that's never gonna help you. You know, I thoroughly believe that the one person who is going to get in the way of team success is Doug Peterson.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate to say because I like him as a person. I just don't think he was ready to coach.
I mean, it's not. I mean, those 4th down, like specifically the Giants game. Me personally, I didn't mind them going for it on 4th down. I just didn't like the plays that they called on those 4th downs. I thought those were ridiculous. Like, if you're going to pass against the Giants, on 4th and short, it needs to be a play-action pass rollout to Zach Ertz
Yeah.
against the Giants.
Yeah,
They got no linebackers, and Zach Ertz is a short yardage receiving tight end.
Yeah.
Or Brent
think-
Selleck, even.
I think what a lot of people are now beginning to envision is that if the Eagles are going to win a Super Bowl, it most likely will be with Wentz, but not with Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when it comes to head coaches, I mean, you really don't want to be in a position to continuously fire a head. Like, say hypothetically, you fire Peterson in the next season or two. That's going to be like 3 head coaches in a 10-year span. I don't know.
If you want me to be honest, I think Doug actually has been helpful to Wentz just because of his quarterback experience, him and Frank Reich and John DeFilippo. I think that's actually been helpful to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Doug Peterson is a good quarterbacks coach, but I don't think he's a good head coach. Like, I think he'd be a good quarterback coach.
I mean, if you look at some of the moves that he's made, because when you look at great head coaches, you look at the plays that are called in pressure situations that either make or break your team, right? And you look at those 2 4th down calls. One is it's 4th and 1, and you run Darren Sproles up the middle.
I think that's where LeGarrette Blount's going to be good in. If you have to do that.
Yeah, that's true. But that in and out of itself was stupid. Secondly, the second call is a quarterback sweep on 4th and 2. That, again, in and out of itself was dumb.
To the same side of Landon Collins.
Exactly. And then you look at the ending score, and the Eagles lost by 5.
With a blocked field goal, too. So that makes it, too. That's another 3 points.
With a blocked field goal, but if you remember, they could have been up. And when Eli Manning plays against the Eagles, he does not do well coming back.
Yeah, he tried throwing the game away, honestly.
Yeah,
but
he threw the game away, basically, but we couldn't capitalize.
Yeah.
I think that's also... I'm not going to get into detail with the Giants, but that's been a big problem that's been coming up recently. The Giants, thank goodness their defense is really good, because if this was the same defense they had last year, they would have gone 5-11.
Yeah, we would have scored more points.
No, well, yeah, because their defense literally, I don't recall how many games off the top of my head specifically, but I know there was a decent amount of games where the other team had the ball last to go and drive to win the game.
Yeah. The Rams were one.
Just look at the Giants' victories. I mean, both of the Cowboy wins were defensive games.
Yeah.
The Bengals game, their defense won. The second Redskins game, their defense won. You could argue that their defense won us the first game against us because their first 2 touchdowns in the first 3 minutes were interceptions.
Yeah.
And they stopped us at the end on top of that, too. So you could argue that the defense beat us the first time, too. The defense won the Saints game. Mm-hmm. Remember, it was 16-13. And their one touchdown they got was a blocked field goal, so their offense didn't score a touchdown there. So,
that's something that's going to hold back the Giants for the most part is that offense. It's you could be you got Brandon Marshall and they got all these weapons. It's I think the offense goes as far as Eli's going to take it, and I don't think it's going to be that much. But
I also
because a good quarterback can succeed even with because you just got to think Odell. I mean, of course, Odell Beckham last year just drew double teams left and right. I mean, obviously you're going to double team Odell Beckham, and even with guys like Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz, Aaron Rodgers would still make that work. Drew Brees would still make that work. Brady would still make that work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought Eli had weapons last year because you at least have a top 5 receiver that draws attention. The Eagles had nobody that drew attention last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also, I wanted to get a little bit on Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott. The thing is if you like in the first 3 games of the season, everyone of course was saying Wentz was better because he had better numbers than Dak, and pretty much the teams were like literally identical with record. Well, the Cowboys were 2-1, the Eagles are 3-0.
Yeah.
But the thing is regardless of how your team is structured, you still have to perform well. And don't get me wrong, I think Wentz was just in a bad situation with his receivers and the weapons he had available to him. But at the same time, he has to make the best that he can. And for the most part, I thought he did. Well, I thought he did. But at the end of the day, Dak Prescott threw more touchdowns and less interceptions than Carson Wentz. So I would say as of right now, Dak is better than Wentz. But I wouldn't be surprised if it flips.
Dak definitely didn't make the boneheaded mistakes, because there were situations in which receivers were open, and Wentz had clearly enough time, and again forced balls in. He forced, I think, 2 or 3 in to Zach Ertz this season.
Wentz made rookie mistakes, no doubt about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, and Dak did too, but not as glaring. Like, the only game that I could recall him like having made rookie mistakes for 2 games were against the Eagles when they played in Dallas and against the Giants game when they played in New York. I mean, for the most part, he threw 2 interceptions in the Giants game, and he threw an interception in the Eagles game.
Yeah,
and I mean,
that Ravens game. Yeah.
Wait, what's that?
That was bad for Wentz. I thought Wentz played. Game. I thought, Ravens. Yeah, Wentz played up and down in that game too.
What I gotta give, the thing with Dak is that his footwork is very solid. Like, he doesn't have a lot of happy feet, but like, both of them are mobile quarterbacks. Dak more so than Wentz. But the thing is when Wentz falls back in the pocket, he just is all uppity and like he keeps moving his feet around, and it looks so ugly. It's horrible. I mean, don't get me wrong, he made some really good throws, but the problem is, and this is what Doug Peterson needs to do, is open up the playbook for Carson Wentz, because every time I saw Carson Wentz throw, it was either the ball was up within the 5 to 10 yard range, or behind the line of scrimmage. Carson Wentz has an arm. He can fling it deep. I've seen that a couple of times.
No, he
has an arm.
He
for
definitely
sure.
does.
Yeah.
It's just the issue was that I think he lost his long range throwing confidence, because especially in that Bears game, he leads Jordan Matthews perfectly for a catch. He led Alshon twice for 1 end zone catch and one that he dropped in the middle of the field, and both were incompleted. I think he lost confidence. And the fact that I think the coaching staff knew.
The Steelers game, remember that one deep ball that DGB dropped in the end zone? That would have been like 50 yards.
He also dropped one in the end zone against Detroit. I mean, that should have been pass interference in the end zone, but I mean, I know right now, I will go into literally every game knowing that my team is going to get shafted by the ref.
Yeah, and it's not so much like catching balls; it's getting open too. Like, a lot of times, Wentz had to perfectly place the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
hardly any of the receivers were wide open. Hardly.
And I think what's also crazy is like how with Dak, it's like I was surprised, like especially in the playoff game against the Packers and a couple of other games, how calm and collected he can be in game-winning drive situations. I think he had a lot. He had like 4 or 5.
He came back against the Eagles. He came back against
the Redskins. He came back against the
Redskins and Detroit, because he held his own against Detroit. It was very close in the second half, and then he just laid the wood.
And then in the Packers playoff game, I know the Cowboys lost, but still, it's like, if that was the Eagles in that situation, I wouldn't think that Carson Wentz would come back, because he
didn't have any.
He
didn't have the closest thing he had to a comeback was that Ravens game.
Yeah, and that was outside of that, nothing else.
Yeah,
it was either they won the game already,
yeah,
or they outright lost the game on a game-winning drive or something like that. But the thing is, Dak Prescott is, and this is what's scary. It's like the fact of the matter is how he can be as a pocket passer. Like I couldn't think that Dak could lead at halftime. Or when we were down 21-3, I was thinking like, oh, this is gonna be a blowout. But then like in the fourth quarter when we score 18 unanswered,
yeah,
to tie the game up. I mean, and people want to blame Dak for losing the game. Like you got to keep in mind that was the defense's fault because like to think about it, like if Mason Crosby misses that field goal, it goes into overtime. Yeah. And I mean, the verdict is out. If whoever got the ball probably would have won the game.
Yeah,
but I still think
that's how it usually is. What is it? 75% of the time, the team that gets the ball first in overtime always wins.
Yeah, something like that. But the point still stands. It's like I think that Dak is going to improve, and considering the fact that you know, of course he has his weapons, but to be fair, like you need a quarterback that knows how to use those weapons, and Dak is that quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people will be like, "Well, if Wentz was there, he would have higher numbers." Well, I doubt that because of how Wentz looked. I
doubt that. I doubt that based off of how Wentz plays.
Yeah,
it's kind of a difference because Wentz is
Wentz is a gunslinger.
Yeah. But
you could say that about like Tony Romo. Like Tony Romo, you could argue was a gunslinger.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, Wentz needs to understand when it's time to let go of the ball or when to throw it away, because he didn't really show that. Not to mention his bubbles. We were just not able to do any bubble screens on our team was just ineffective.
Yeah, those are a waste of a down.
And I saw a lot of it was him throwing bad screen passes. Like he would throw to the receiver's feet instead of like towards their body.
Well, to be fair, at least you guys didn't get Jared Goff.
Yeah. We weren't gonna get it. The Eagles traded up knowing that they were gonna get Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is, again, I think that Jerry is still out for Jared Goff because, like, to be fair, he had Jeff Fisher as a coach, and it's like if you look at his weapons, he has Todd Gurley, of like a really good running back if you use him correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like he's literally a reincarnation of Steven Jackson, and he can be if he ends up, if he keeps putting up the numbers he did.
I think he's a good running back. I don't care what.
Yeah, he's a good I think he's good.
They also have no line either.
Yeah, but still, I think.
I still think there's promise for Goff. There's been way worse rookie years.
Yeah, and I think
there's still promise for him.
The game versus the Saints, I think, showed a lot of promise because he threw 3 touchdowns in that game, and I think he threw an interception. But for the most part, that was probably a flash of what Goff can do. But to be fair, the jury is still out on him. So I want to move on to talk about how you think the Eagles are going to do in this upcoming season. So me personally, I think I said I had them going 9-7.
Mm-hmm.
But they would get into the playoffs by some tiebreaker or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have them anywhere between 7-9 and 9-7, and I particularly know the games that they're gonna win. Don't be surprised if the Eagles start out 0-2.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Because they play the Redskins in Washington. We haven't beaten the Washington Redskins in almost 3 calendar years.
2014, the first game in 2014.
Yeah, we haven't beaten the Washington Redskins in Washington in almost 4 calendar years, and they play well against us. Our second game is what? It's in Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, at least I don't got to reenact them anymore.
Yeah, but that place is hard to. The only time I remember beating the Chiefs in Kansas City was we had to come back against them, and
Mhm.
and then I think that the
I don't know. I think we beat Washington though. I think we finally do.
I think we can. I think we have more of a chance of beating them at home though. But then week 3, I think we can beat the Giants at home. I think that that's gonna be a blackout game, all black game. It's got to be because that's
0-2.
that's the tradition. And then we go to San Diego, and I think we lose to the Chargers right there, right off the. We've never beaten Phillip Rivers. We've never beat Phillip Rivers. San Diego Chargers. That's gonna be like a trap game for us.
You mean Los Angeles Chargers?
No, they'll always be
Whatever.
the San Diego Chargers.
I'm still gonna call them that regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Then what's our next game? Oh, I think we beat the
Cardinals.
I think we beat the Cardinals at home. Only because it's a 10 a.m. game and it's at home. I don't think the Cardinals are the type of team they used to be. They play very well against us, but I think the Cardinals are on the decline. You know,
Serious decline. Yeah. I see us starting 3-2 the first 5 games.
Yeah, I see us 2-3 just because I don't think we're gonna beat the Redskins. Then we on a Thursday night game in Carolina, I think we're gonna lose that game too because if we were to play Carolina,
we struggled there, but I don't know. I don't think Carolina is anything special.
We struggle there, but I don't think it matters. For right now, I'm gonna say that's a loss. And then I think we're gonna beat the Redskins at home for the first time. That's a Monday Night Football game, and we usually show up decently well on Monday Night Football.
Redskins don't like Monday Night Football either.
Yeah, they don't like it. And then I think we beat the Redskins, or I think we beat the 49ers at home, and then I think we beat the Broncos at home. Because again, that Broncos
That's the
game,
key part of our schedule. That 3-game homestand, that's the key part of our schedule right there.
Exactly. If we can win all 3 of those games at home, that would be amazing. Because again, the 49ers
and have a bye week. So
we have a bye week too? Oh.
Yeah, after the 3 home games in a row, we have a bye week. So it's like we literally stay a complete month in Philly.
So just because the reason why I give us the edge against the 49ers and the Broncos is because they're 1 a.m. games. You know.
Yeah, they're coming across to play us.
They're coming across to play us as well. I think at that point, is that 5 wins and 4 losses? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 losses, 5 wins. Oh no, 4 losses, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 wins. And then I think we lose at Dallas. Then we win versus Chicago.
That's Sunday Night Football, right?
Yeah. Then we win against Chicago. That's 6-5. Then we lose at Seattle. That's 6-6. We beat the Rams. That's 7-6. And then I think we lose to the Giants at MetLife. And then then trap game, we beat the Raiders at home, and then we beat Dallas at home.
Yeah,
again, those are both home games.
That Sunday Night Football game in Dallas, yeah, that could go either. That goes either way.
So the question is well, who do you have winning the NFC East this year?
The Giants.
Well, I know you, Hank. I'm more on Eagles' team.
Oh wait, you said who'd I have winning the NFC East?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys.
Okay.
I'm not high on the Giants or Redskins at all.
I say the Giants because I feel like they have the most complete team on paper. There's no reason not to pick them to win the division. I think they'll be 11-5.
Like I mean, I just look at Dallas though. I mean, even if like Dak is just an average quarterback, like even if he has like the slightest slump, that running game is just good for at least 8 wins, at least like that.
Yeah, I mean,
That running game is just.
I have the Giants at 11-5. I have Dallas at 10-6. I think they're gonna fight for the division, and I think the Eagles will be anywhere between 7-9 and 9-7. And then I don't know where to put the Redskins because I say that every season. I don't know. I can't predict where the Redskins are gonna fall.
Yeah, but yeah, Redskins to me are the biggest unknown for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely the biggest. They're a bigger unknown than us. But I think that until Dak can prove that he can beat that defense, I don't think that
I'm picking the Giants week 1 at least to beat Dallas.
Yeah, I have us losing in week 1, but then I have a splitting with the Giants. I have like we're gonna lose week 1, I think, but we're gonna beat them like later in the season when it actually counts. Because like what I think I had us going 11-5. I'm referring to the Cowboys and the Giants going 11-5 as well. But because of tiebreakers, it ended up making the Cowboys the division winner.
Mm-hmm.
But the Giants would have become like I think a seed. I think.
I mean, I think this is a good division overall, but to me, I think it's over. I mean, I wouldn't say overrated, but I think it's getting overhyped right now because I don't think Dallas is going to go 13-3. And like you said, I'm the Giants. I'm not. The Eagles, I mean, I think we're a good team, but we're no powerhouse by any means.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think the winner of this division is 11-5.
We need
this year.
Yeah, I agree. The Eagles need more. The Eagles need another good draft, another productive draft in order to be even considered anything.
I just think we have a shot because I mean, obviously, the Redskins are an unknown, but more likely they're a 6-win team. That's around the range for this year, I think. 6-7-win team.
I think what also a lot of people, and I don't want to get into ridiculous speculations, but like a lot of people don't realize also, like, because I've been talking to a couple of Giants Eagles fans, they're like, oh, well, once Dak goes down, it's all over for you. But it's like, you got to keep in mind, there's a guy in the booth named Tony Romo that could come in. Because I honestly think that's probably. I don't think
he can't. But he can't come in. He can't come in mid-season. He's under contract.
No, he has an out clause in his contract.
Oh, damn! But he can't come in during the same game.
No, well, not in the same game. Yeah, come on, No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that even if we lose that game, hypothetically, if Dak was to get injured, you got to keep in mind that the Cowboys basically have a secret backup in the booth. And a lot of people don't understand that. And it's like, listen, I don't think he's coming back. Don't get me wrong. But still. We got a little comment. Did we talk about Jeremy Maclin? I believe, yeah, we did. Early.
Well, no, we actually didn't.
We didn't? Yeah, we weren't live.
We weren't live when we did it.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
All right, so, in conclusion, okay, before we talk about Jeremy Maclin, do you want to predict the stat lines of both quarterbacks for next season?
I'll predict Wentz's.
Okay.
All right, I'll predict Wentz's. I think Wentz will be the first quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards for us in the season, and I think it will be this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
I do too.
He had 37, like high 37. I'll just round up and basically say he had 3,800 yards this year, of course, with the receivers that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a completely revamped receiving core, year 2 into the system, more experience. So I think Wentz, he gets the yards. Like, I think he barely cracks it because we do have a slow, methodical offense. So I say he gets 4,072. Let's just say that. 4,072 yards. And I think he has 22 touchdowns and 13 picks.
I think Wentz has 4,100 passing yards, and I think that he's gonna have 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. as
And I forgot to say he'll have like 200 yards rushing and at least 2 rushing touchdowns.
yeah,
I think
he'll
too.
have that too. I think as for
Mhm.
Dak, I think Dak will have significantly less passing yards. I see him being a 38, 100-yard passer with 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4 rushing touchdowns.
hmm Well, let me give my 2 cents in
Yeah.
here before we move on to the other one.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
I think Carson Wentz going to throw over 4,000 yards. I don't know exactly, but it's going to be over 4,000 yards. I think he's gonna. I think it's going to be. I think he's going to throw probably. I'm going to say 25 touchdowns to 15 interceptions.
Oh,
And-
Wentz?
Yeah, Wentz,
Oh, okay.
and like 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then as for Dak, I see Dak throwing 20. I say 25 touchdowns to 10 interceptions with 5 rushing touchdowns.
Okay. And what about are you going to predict his
Passing yards probably 3,500.
Yeah. It's safe to say that with Ezekiel Elliott and that offensive line, he won't have as many. He
Because
won't
he's
have
not
as
required
many
to.
passing yards. It just
Yeah.
doesn't need to.
Dak's stats will look good in the touchdown to interception ratio rather than yards.
Yeah.
That is true.
All right. So
Yeah.
so let's move on to Jeremy Maclin. So the storyline goes like this. Last season he had like 500 some odd receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, which is good for a Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver. But then he had an injury-ridden season, and 2 weeks ago, Jeremy Maclin got married to his MMA wife, and he goes to OTAs, skips his honeymoon. He invited Andy Reid to his wedding. Well, he invited Andy Reid, he invited Alex Smith, and he invited the most overpaid backup quarterback that there's ever been to his wedding, aka Chase Daniel. He gets cut on the 5th day of OTAs, and he missed his honeymoon to go on OTAs. So the person that I feel the most bad for is his wife, by the way. And that's how it went.
Oh, I would lose it if I like. But to be fair, I think if you're looking at I think what they're probably looking at is he costs us a lot against the cap and he's not beneficial to it. I mean, his first year in Kansas City, he had a really good year, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. But for the most part, he wasn't injured. But then the next season, a huge drop off, 536 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. So I'm not surprised that they cut him, but I'm surprised how they cut him.
Yeah. Well,
it was pretty messed up.
This isn't anything unusual. Andy Reid is known for cutting players like Jeremiah Trotter in 2007. He's known for promising both McNabb and Brian Dawkins that they would be playing for the team, and Dawkins was not re-signed, and Donovan McNabb was traded to a division rival. So I feel like it's a business decision because he didn't play that well last season and he didn't play for as many games. The Chiefs, the way that Andy Reid's offense centers around running back, short passes to the running back, and passes to the tight end. Okay, that's his style of the West Coast offense. His teams don't usually beat you with wide receivers. So he probably has the best tight end in the league right now in Travis Kelce.
Yeah, you can make an argument.
So I mean, Gronkowski has proven that he can't be healthy, so but
yeah.
Maybe,
But I'm not surprised.
maybe you could possibly say that Marty B is one of the best tight ends in the league right now. But again,
I don't know.
it's just you just don't know.
Tyler Eifert when
And
he's
Tyler
healthy.
Eifert too, but
Tyler
Tyler
Eifert,
Eifert
yeah.
can't stay healthy either.
Mhm.
So
I think, yeah, and like I know a lot of people were like, well, how can we bring Jeremy Maclin back? I'm referring to like Philadelphia. Well,
Yeah.
you can't. You have $1 million in cap space right now, and it's legitimately not possible. Like the only way that you get him is if he signs an extremely team friendly contract, which I doubt.
yeah, or a veteran's minimum.
Minimum. Yeah,
or a backloaded contract, which I don't think he's gonna sign a backloaded contract.
Nah, he won't. That's the thing. And only that, I don't think you should sign him. He's 29 years old. He's getting up there in age. This isn't like him at age 25, 26. That would have been different.
Yeah.
But he's 29 years old. And you got to realize is that if you're a team that's rebuilding, you shouldn't be bringing in. The only time you should be bringing in veterans is if they're willing to take veteran cuts or veteran minimums and whatnot. That's what the Cowboys have done.
Mm-hmm.
But more so on the defense.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Jeremy Maclin, he was a good player for the Eagles, and I think it's best that you don't touch him.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
I think he's just going to take up a roster space that someone else should have.
Yeah. And it's already it's too late in the game. It's too late in the game to kind of make a decision to bring him on because we brought in we brought in Smith, we brought in Jeffrey, we drafted Hollins, and we drafted what's his name from West Virginia?
Shelton Gibson.
Yeah, Shelton Gibson. So we've got Treggs on the practice squad, and we've got Paul Turner on the practice squad. We've got some other decent players who can make the practice squad. There's just
Greg Ward is looking good. So
yeah, there's just no reason to do it.
And I think what's smart. I think what's smart is the bringing in of Alshon Jeffrey and how that contract works out. I mean, for sure, that is a huge contract for a singular year. But to be fair, that's smarter than what you guys did with DeMarco Murray. Like that kind of contract.
Well,
you give this guy.
Yeah, we overpaid DeMarco Murray.
I think though, if it weren't for the PED suspension, we would have given Alshon a long-term deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
That's the other thing. If he fails another test, he's out 10 games.
I'm just interested to see how Nelson Aguilar plays in the slot because I think that's where he fits best. I never envisioned him being a number one receiver in the league. I envisioned him being a slot receiver, but not like an amazing one.
Yeah, he was like a third to fifth rounder on most draft boards. I mean, I remember with both the Marcus Smith and the Nelson Aguilar picks, Roger Goodell announces them after, I give him a mouthful of booing. And for both Marcus Smith and Nelson Aguilar. Now, I didn't follow college football that much, but I seem to remember after both of those picks going, who? Like, who? Who are those guys?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when it came to Marcus Smith, I knew that we weren't going to be able to get Pryor. We weren't going to be able to get Clinton Dix. We weren't going to be able to get... the
Saints screwed us over by trading up for Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, we weren't going to be able to get Brandon Cooks, but we still could have gotten... what's his name? The Carolina Panthers.
Benjamin?
Yeah, Kelvin Benjamin. We could have gotten Kelvin Benjamin. And I think that Kelvin Benjamin was a better wide receiver than Jordan Matthews would have been. And he would have worked very well alongside Jeremy Maclin. The other thing is, the issue I have with that 2000 Nelson Aguilar just should have never been drafted by the Eagles.
I don't even think he fit you guys.
The Eagles should have never traded Foles for Nick Foles for Sam Bradford, and then
that was messed up.
And then the second round pick. Reason being because they're both similar quarterbacks when it comes to production. They're gonna produce relatively the same amount as each other, so they're even swaps. The difference is Sam Bradford was worth $18 million, and Nick Foles was still on his rookie contract.
Yeah, and I mean, Nick Foles also fit your system too. With what Chip Kelly was running. I mean, he did pretty successful for the most part.
He did, but I think he did it it's hard for me to tell you whether he fit the system or not because Chip wanted to get rid of him, and the moment he got power, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, and only that
I don't think that Sam Bradford fit the system any more or less than Foles did.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, I think Foles got injured against the Texans in 2014, and that's when they were like 8-3 or whatever. So for all we know,
we were 7-2.
Yeah, but the point is that the Eagles were had one of the best records in the league.
Yeah.
And if for all we know, you guys could have probably won the division at like 13-3, 12-4 maybe. Yeah. Hypothetically. I mean, because of all that momentum.
Yeah. I mean, it was just I think that the other thing was that Dallas, again, being a young team, being somewhat inexperienced, that Dallas win on Thanksgiving really killed the momentum because they were high on that. They were very high on that win. But the issue is, again, we lose a lot of money getting Bradford. We lose a lot of money signing Byron Maxwell. And when you look down the road, you're looking at Jeremy Maclin. You can't offer him that $13 million contract. It's a tough situation, and you have to. I don't really remember. Were there any really good receivers that came out of the 2015 NFL draft? I can't remember.
2015, Amari Cooper.
Oh yeah, but wasn't Amari Cooper drafted early though?
Yes, yeah, I didn't know if you were
I don't think we would have been able to get Amari Cooper. What? Let me look it up.
Amari Cooper was like a top 5 pick, wasn't he?
Yeah.
2015 NFL draft.
Besides, there's Tyler Lockett.
But Tyler Lockett. I don't think he would have been a great receiver for us.
Alan Hurns.
There was Kevin White who went to the Bears. Devontae Parker who went to the Dolphins.
Alan Hurns would have fit us perfectly.
Yeah. Rashard Perriman. Rashard Perriman is a guy who I think...
He's a home run hitter. That's all he is.
Yeah, but I think he would have been better than Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
Dorial Green-Beckham, Devin Funchess.
Trash. Okay, he's all right.
Jalen Strong and Tyler Lockett, who work for the teams that they play for. Chris Conley.
I don't even know who he is.
He plays for the Chiefs. Came out of Georgia.
Okay.
Sammy Coates has catching issues for the Steelers. Ty Montgomery, that's down in the third round already as it is. So, Jamison Crowder, Washington. But I would say that most of the players that were drafted behind him ended up being better players than he was. You know?
Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue with Nelson Aguilar is that I think that he's stuck in his own head. I think that he knows that he has to live up to his first round status, but he's not talented enough to do it. I think that he's one of the best route runners on the team. He just can't catch to save his life. And I will always go back to saying, I know this is really screwed up, but I would have jumped for joy if it was Nelson Aguilar with a gun, with weed in his car, an unregistered gun and weed in his car, driving in New Jersey.
Josh Huff?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I would have traded Josh Huff for Nelson Aguilar any day. Because while Nelson Aguilar was the more talented receiver, Josh Huff did more for the team. In almost every way. I mean, he almost single-handedly won us that Minnesota Vikings game.
So, I think we're pretty much we're almost done. So I just want to leave on one last question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for Eagle Speed. So Eagle Speed, so I know this is pretty early to answer this question, but I'll just present this to you. So, say hypothetically the Eagles traded up in 2015 to get Mariota.
Okay.
Would you have taken Mariota or Wentz?
Mariota or Wentz, you said?
Yeah, because there was the rumors of, Chip's going to trade up. He's going to trade the farm to get Marcus Mariota.
In Chip's offense, Mariota.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I would just stick with Wentz.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, of course, I know that's a very early question to ask. But maybe down the line, maybe that would be a much more
At the same time, you have to understand that.
If you really want me to be honest, if we had Mariota with Chip, I thought our offense actually would have been good. If you really want me to be honest, I thought it would have worked out fine.
Yeah,
and it's just the draft
but
picks that would be the issue.
It wasn't worth trading from number 20 all the way to.
I know it would have been an insane trade, but as far as play on the field, I thought it would have worked.
Yeah. The reason why the reason why the Eagles were able to get to Wentz was because they were at the 13th pick. They traded two players. They traded two players
overpaid
to two overpaid players who didn't produce that well to the Dolphins, and then they traded DeMarco Murray for a higher 4th round pick to the Tennessee Titans, and they used those extra draft picks to trade up to get Wentz. So when people go like, "Oh, you sold the whole farm for Carson Wentz,"
no, we didn't.
No, we did
not
not,
at all.
because
compared to what you could have given up from Mariota.
Yeah. But we didn't, because these were picks that we had received from other teams.
Yeah. So I think we've
or one more thing.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I want to talk to Eagle Speed, because we did this with Saints Uptown, and I don't think we were able to do this with Nick Fargo. But I want to discuss for the last 10 minutes why you're an Eagles fan, what made you a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles, why you like being an Eagles fan, a favorite game that you've ever been to.
Okay.
That stuff.
All right, I'll just start by what made me an Eagles fan. I've always had connections out east, and I never went back east. The year of 2006 or 7, I went up to the East Coast and basically saw how it was, and I was basically around for an Eagles game, and I seen how the sports town that Philly was, I was just drew to it when I went there.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, combined on that by watching him on TV, it just seemed like destiny to be an Eagles fan, and I was, and I have since. And so what was the other parts of the question?
The other parts of it were
favorite games and favorite memories and what I like about being an Eagles fan.
Before you do that, I'm gonna head out, guys. I have to head out early.
All right, for sure.
Thanks. Thanks for being on Eagle Speed. Been good.
Oh yeah.
So I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. See you, Ricky. So yeah, your favorite a game you've been to, or your favorite Eagles your favorite Eagles game experience, or something like that.
My favorite Eagles game experience. This was recent too. It's just that that Thanksgiving game on Dallas was also on my birthday too.
Oh, okay.
So that was one of my favorite experiences.
Your birthday's November 26th?
27th.
Oh, my birthday's 26th.
Oh, okay. So that was one of them, and of course, the 2000. Even though technically I wasn't really into football, but I watched the game. That was our 2003 divisional round, the 4th to 26 against the Packers.
Yeah, I saw that game too. That was amazing because of the fact that the team was down. The team was down, like, what was it? The team was down 14-0. They came back. They didn't have Brian Westbrook. They didn't have, like, their best playmaker.
Right.
Our
offensive line played horrible that game.
Yeah. And then in the second half, they came back. The score was 17 to 14, 4th and 26, and you're thinking, God, the Packers got to bring the blitz.
This is it. Like
you at some point in time, you have to bring the blitz because if you don't, because there is so much field to cover. You got to at least bring 6 guys. I mean, that's what like a smart defensive coordinator does in that situation.
Yeah, because if you get there quick, the receiver ain't going to go 26 yards by the time you get there. That's why they bring the blitz.
Yeah, and then McNabb stumbled, first of all, and Freddie Mitchell is wide open over the middle of the field, blank, like not even like it's just it wasn't even a mismatch. What was he? He was going after. Al Harris was covering him or something like that.
Yeah.
And McNabb threw him the ball. They spotted him like 2 yards forward of where he was actually down. Kick a field goal. The Packers are trying to come back. Brett Favre throws a Hail Mary pass on like second down. It's intercepted by Dawkins, and Akers kicks the game-winning field goal. That was an amazing game.
Yeah, especially because it just seemed like the Packers had every chance to run away with the game because Ahman Green was just destroying our run defense the whole game.
Ahman Green, Najee Davenport,
and Ferguson was killing Sheldon Brown.
Yeah. But, I would say, I think mine by default has to be like the Miracle at the New Meadowlands. It's got to be.
Okay.
Like
without a doubt.
It's either that one or Nick Foles throwing 7 touchdowns against Oakland. And I would
another good one, of course, is that 2008 playoff game against the Giants where he stopped him twice on 4th and inches. The Giants.
Brandon Jacobs as well. Or once was Eli, once was Brandon Jacobs.
What about your worst experiences? And there's a lot of them.
Oh shit. Worst.
Just because I was like recently watching the Eagles and more into it was, of course, the 2008 championship game to the Cardinals.
Yeah, that was bad. But I was at that game, and it wasn't that bad. Like it wasn't. I wasn't like crushed, but I was like upset, but I wasn't like crushed. I'm not gonna say the 2004-2005 Super Bowl with the Patriots because that's like a given. But I would say like the worst one.
You were around longer than me. 2002 with the Bucks.
Yeah,
that one sucked too.
That one was pretty bad. But I'm trying to think of like
2001 with the Panthers.
You mean 2003?
That's Nitro's worst. Yeah, 2003. That was Nitro's worst.
That one was bad, but I don't think that game didn't really crush me that much because I knew the Panthers were better, had more talent on the field at that point in time. Damn, like this is a hard one to answer. Uh,
playoff game.
ugh. Probably. Actually, I'm gonna say right now, probably the most crushing game was that one time in 2006, week 2, when we were beating the Giants 24-10 at halftime, and they came back to beat us in overtime. I will say that was probably the most crushing one. Either that or the year before.
Or the 06 playoff game against the Saints.
That one was bad, but again, like I don't. If we're playing against a team that's better than us, which I think that the Saints were better than us, I won't usually count that one. But I will also say
the Cardinals one. It just seemed like after Thanksgiving that there's no way we'd lose.
Yeah, and we only lost once against the Redskins. I think that probably the most crushing one was 2005 Monday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. We're beating the Dallas Cowboys 20-7 with like 5 minutes left to go. Drew Bledsoe throws a pass to Terry Glenn for a touchdown. And all we have to do is like make sure the Cowboys don't get the ball. First play from scrimmage, Donovan McNabb throws an interception to Roy Williams. Donovan gets trampled after his sports hernia. He's out for the rest of the game. He's out for the rest of the season. That, in my mind, was very crippling because at the time the Eagles didn't win. They didn't win a division game all season.
Right.
And that was our chance to win a division game. And it slipped away from us and we lost. And I would say that was it for me. Rough.
Yeah, the 2009 season where the Cowboys beat us 3 times.
Oh, that was pretty. 22. What was it? They beat us 22-22 or 24-0. Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say that 44-6 game was one of the better games I've ever seen.
All right, so what do you like about being an Eagles fan?
I would say it's like a connection to members of my family that I don't get to see a lot anymore because I was born in New Jersey, but I mean there were pictures of me wearing like Eagles pajamas and stuff like that, but I didn't really start supporting them until like 90, 95, 96, 97, like right before I left, like right before I moved to California. And my grandfather is a big Eagles fan. My uncle is a big Eagles fan. My cousins are big Eagles fans. It's something that it's a link. It's a link for that between all of that. And I mean, the Eagles haven't won anything of note really since 1960. And I feel like I'm a big fan of underdogs. Like I always root for the underdog like almost every time, unless I hate the underdog. But I feel like the Eagles have always been an underdog team. You know, they've had good times, but they're whatever part of the quasi dynasty they had in the early 2000s, it's like gone. I mean, I don't know if you were a fan in the early 2000s, but from 2001 to 2004, you could expect the Eagles to win 11, 12 games a season. You could expect them to win basically every week. It was kind of like the New England Patriots. You would expect them to win every week. Even if they lost, they'd probably win the week after that. They'd have 11 to 12 to 13 wins. And that's not when I became a fan, but that was like that was probably the closest to glory years of this team because what the Eagles only have like 8 division championships, right? Either 8 or 13. I don't know which one, but they don't have that many. And that's really when they started winning division championships. They were by far the best team in the division. The coaching in the other for the other teams weren't good. We had the best defense and we were set. And I'm not saying that's probably like the most exciting time of my fanhood, but it's not when I became a fan. But yeah. But that's all I have for right now. I'm glad to talk to Eagle Speed at any time. It's a good conversation. I hope that everyone in the audience learned something about the Eagles if they didn't already know anything about the Eagles. If you are a fan of another team, because we've already done these with a Packers fan, a Saints fan, and now an Eagles fan. Trying to do one with a Giants fan and a Falcons fan in the near future. If you are a fan of one of those teams and you would like to hit us up to talk about your team, please tweet or slide into my DMs at 2birds and3rd. The Twitter handle is on the screen. Or message us at 2birds and3rd Football Podcast on Facebook. Eagle Speed, it was a pleasure to have you.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
All right, so we are signing off. Everyone have a nice day. We plan to have a podcast on either Wednesday or Thursday of this week, so look out for that. Everyone have a nice day.